Hi and welcome to another tech tip from FARO. My name's Cy Horton and I'm a 3D documentation engineer for FARO UK. During this demonstration I'd like to show you how to use Scene WebShare Server to Go. WebShare Server to Go is free to download from the FARO website. The ability to use WebShare Server to Go allows you to share information with your clients or your internal staff by sharing data on an SD card or a USB device. The data could also be loaded onto a DVD as long as you make the client aware that they would have to copy the data off the DVD first before they run it. The beauty of WebShare Server to Go is that the client doesn't require any software. The bundle of data you give them has everything contained within. So firstly, you will need to visit the FARO website and download the version specific to yourself. There are two available, WebShare Server to Go 64-bit and WebShare Server to Go 32-bit. What you need to be mindful of is what your client has access to on their machine. If you create a 64-bit and they've only got a 32-bit machine, they won't be able to view it. So it's safer in some circumstances to create the 32-bit, which covers everybody. Now there are several ways to get the data set up. First off, as you can see, I've downloaded the 64-bit version of WebShare Server to Go. I could put this on a USB device and unzip it directly onto the USB device, but for speed I'm going to work directly on my hard drive. So first off, we need to extract the data in a format that we can then write to. So when the file has been extracted, you can see the folder structure here, beneath which is the .bat file which the client will need to start, along with a series of manuals. To make this example a little more pertinent to myself, what I'm going to do is just rename it to be called example. Once I've done that, I then need to go into FARO Scene and start the process of loading this example project with data. So now moving over onto FARO Scene, I've got a nice simple project here that if you've seen some of the other movies, I've already utilised this project. So what I'm going to do first off is just check that my registration is nice and in place, which it is. Now within the WebShare to Go, you have the ability to attach external documents, be they drawings or photographs. You could also put in website links as well, so the recipient that gets the WebShare data can actually go around and look at the information as well as just the scan data. So what we're going to do in this example is also add in some external documents. In this particular building, it's supposed to be turned into a skate park, so I have the drawings that I'm going to attach to various features in the building. So what we need to do now is create our document links, but first off we need to put a new folder into our project structure so the system knows where to go and look for the documents. This will also have to be copied across to WebShare to Go data folder at the same time. So WebShare looks for a specific folder under your project folder. As you can see, this is the standard project folder structure, and the folder it needs to look for, which you need to add in manually, is a documents folder. So simply copy in any documents that you want to create into that folder. I've got a series of drawings that I'm going to tag in this particular model, so I'm literally going to pick those up and drag them into my documents folder. This will then give me the ability to go and create the document links in Scene. So in order to create the document links, we need to do that from a planar view. So I'm just going to open up all these files in a planar view and then have a look around to see where I'm going to put the document links. So if we start at the front and pick a location. On the tool palette up here we had the Add Documentation link. If we click on that, then it will allow us to pick a location for our document link, and then it will bring up a dialog box. In the dialog box, on the General tab, you can set up a unique name for the document that you're creating. So if we create this one called Isometric View, remembering to use underscores, as Scene doesn't like spaces. Then on our document properties, we can put in a description to tell us what this particular document is, or we can add in our hyperlinks. Now as a tip, be wary of adding in hyperlinks to a location outside your documents folder. If I show an example of that, if I click on the icon here to add a link, and then I go to this particular folder and click OK and add the data that I've selected here into the hyperlink section. If I publish this data out now, and you can read for yourself what it says, and the client at the other end can actually read the location of your folder or file irrespective of whether they're running on a standalone machine, because it saves this direct link. So what I tend to do is not work in that fashion. Let's remove that. What I'm going to do is go to my documents folder and just check the name that I have there, which is isometric.jpg. Then in scene, all I do at the bottom, if I select all that and get rid of it, I simply type in the name, click add, and now what the system is going to do is when it looks for this hyperlink, it's going to go back to the documents folder under the project and look for isometric.jpg. So when I'm happy with that, I just click OK. And you can see on the view there, I've got my isometric, and over on the structure on the left, I've got the isometric view in there as well. So what I can do now is just work around and add in the rest of the document links, and I've cheated a little bit and added a few more in, which you can see in my tree on the left, and I've tried to split it up between some of the views, so we've got a few document links in each one. Okay, so when you're happy with that, we can now start to look at creating the WebShare data. So if you've never created a WebShare document before, we have a simple icon on the toolbar at the top for creating WebShare data. If we click on that, firstly we can choose whether to export color, grayscale, or both. We can change the background of the overview map, and we can also apply clipping boxes, which I'll come onto a little bit later. I'm going to choose both and then simply click OK. Now, dependent on the amount of scan data that you've got and the amount of documents that you've created, this can take a short while. So when it's finished, we can go in and check the project before we start to consider uploading it to the WebShare server to go. So whilst remaining in scene, I'm going to go to my project selector, go to my project. I've now got my WebShare created. Let the data load up. I can see top right hand corner we've got our overview map and we've got our images. So I can zoom into my overview map, double click on any of the locations, and it fires up the view. Any of the locations I've created a document link, if I double click on the document link, I can open up that particular image. One of the other things I put in here was on the front door. I put in a website link, so I've put in the link to the FARO website where you can download the WebShare Server to Go application. So literally double clicking on that will fire us up to the FARO website, which we started off at the very beginning of this recording. So now I'm happy that this is created, I can now start to consider creating my WebShare to Go project. Now, one of the things that will become apparent is that if you're doing large jobs with lots of revisions, it's often advisable to use the cleanup and compact project before you continue, because you do have the ability to share all the scan information and all your revisions with your client or the internal project team. To upload, what we do, to the right of the WebShare data icon, click on the down arrow and click Upload WebShare Data. By default, I've automatically got my image created, but what I could do as a little tip is I could take a screenshot of any particular portion of this job, and then in my project folder, so if I go back to my project folder and go upper level, if I save that screen grab as a name with @preview.jpg, it will automatically populate the home screen in scene, and it will automatically populate this in here. We can give it an example in here or description. We can add in a longitude and latitude, which will give us a direct link to Google Maps. If I go to my extended options, then there are a few things in here to be aware of. If you click full project, it will actually send everything, including all your revisions. So it's often advisable, as I said, to clean and compact your project. If you leave scan downloads ticked, then the client could download the raw scan data that you've created yourself. So in essence, if they were taking that into a 3D CAD system, they could download and go and do any modelling work themselves. I'm going to untick that to save time. You can also give the client the ability to support measurements, so they can take measurements in the system as well. Now what I need to do is create a data package for a manual upload, or in this instance I'm going to upload it directly to the folder we zipped or unzipped at the beginning of this movie. So click on that, click next, and then I need to locate the example project that I did, which I think was on my drive in my WebShare projects, and in my example project I need to look for protected and public projects. Once I've selected protected and public projects, I click OK. Now the data package will start to be created. When it's done, the dialog box will pop up to say it's been done, and just by looking at this I can see it's been put in example WebShare Server to go, protected, public projects, and there's my project. So if I navigate to that location, which is my example project, the first thing I need to do is copy over the documents. So if I go into the server folder, into protected and into public projects, you'll see this is the upload that they've done. Go into there and no document folder exists. So if I go back to my FARO scene project, I've got this documents folder that I can simply copy and paste into this location here. So I now know that all my documents are in that location. Then we go back to the example project. So you send this to the client, could be on a USB stick, an SD card, or they could have copied this off a DVD, or in fact an internet account like Google Drive or box.com, something like that. All they need to do is double click on the .bat file. It will fire up two windows while it fires up the Tomcat server in the background, and then it will start up with Google Chrome. This will then give the ability to look at all the scan data, be it in colour or in grayscale. So in my project location here, I've got the file. If I hover across it, at the bottom left hand corner, you can see any descriptive information that I've added in. If I'd have added in my longitude and latitude, I'd get another icon in the top right hand corner, which would show in Google Maps. But to open the project, they just need to double click on it. So if you've never seen WebShare, in the top left hand corner are all the images that we've got. In the top right is the overview map, and at the bottom there's nothing at the moment because we haven't selected a view. In each view we can maximize to view the window. In here we can zoom and pan around using the wheel and button on the mouse. Each dot represents the location of where the scanner was. If you're working on a sloped site, these dots will be different colours, which will be denoted by the scale factor up in the top right hand corner. What you will find as well with big jobs, as you zoom in and zoom out, scans that are close together will cluster together. The more you zoom in, they'll start to split apart to see their locations. At the top right hand corner we have the ability to take point-to-point measurements or area measurements. So if I wanted to know the rough area of the entrance foyer, which is about this size, I can literally just chase around fairly crudely and the system will tell me it's 25.5 meters squared. It will also give me all the lengths of all the sides. Exactly the same for doing point-to-point measurements to find the width of the building. Again, single click and double click to close the string and it tells me that it's 9.54 meters. If I want to then jump into any of the views, I double click on the view itself and it takes me directly into the view. So if I maximize this view, I can start to look around. I've got the same tools up here for measuring. I can toggle between grayscale and color. And then you can see my document links. If I double click on a document link, here I can see I've got miniramp.jpg. If I double click on that, the first thing you'll notice in some instances is nothing will happen. Now this is down to the pop-up blocker in Google Chrome. So in the top right hand corner we can see that we've got our pop-up blocker. So if I click on that little red cross, I can always allow pop-ups from the local host. Click done, and now when we double click on it, it should open up my drawing. Now what you will notice is, because I've only added a couple of document links in here, that's all you'll see in this particular view. If you want to see any of the other links, such as go down the front, so double click on that one, then you'll see the website link that I added on the front door, the isometric view, and any others that I've added in here, such as the box layout. So that's it for creating your WebShare Server to go files by firstly creating your WebShare in FARO Scene, then publishing it out to the folder that you've extracted and then sharing it with multiple people. In an environment where you might have multiple projects, what you can do is add multiple projects into WebShare Server to go, structure them either as individual projects in a long string or in a folder structure. So what I'm going to do is close this example down and go into my own folder structure that I've created. I will then go to my projects folder, start my WebShare Server to go, and it will fire up in exactly the same way. But what you'll notice now is that I've created or published multiple projects to the same location. So on my home screen, I could have set them up to have individual project icons, but what I've done is created a folder structure. If I go back to that example and go into my WebShare protected public projects, you can see I've manually created 3 folder locations, and under each one I've published my data directly from Scene into the relevant location. So now when I go back to here, if I want to go into FARO examples and go to the BBC, and it will fire up that particular project. So it makes it more convenient when you're out and about seeing multiple customers that you can have everything loaded up in one environment. So if I just pop into one of these views, you can see the data that's been created. So one of the things I mentioned earlier was the ability to use clipping boxes. These become quite advantageous when you're working with your overview map in the WebShare data. As you can see, I've jumped into another project and I've got some rather large trees around. If I go into my project selector and then look at the project itself, as you can see, there's 2 things I'm not really happy with. One is the ghosting of the trees, and 2 is the orientation of the building, so I need to rectify that. If I drop back into my project now, the first thing I need to do is create my project point cloud. Well, for speed, I've automatically created that already. The second thing I need to do is create a clipping box. Before I do that, what I'm going to do is orientate my project to be north. If I right click on the screen and change my camera to be orthographic and fit the view, and then what I'm going to do is look at it from the top, you can see that the orientation of the building is not particularly great. So if I open up my first scan in a planar view, rotate around, and then all I'm going to do is, using my selection tools, pop a selection on the front elevation, right click and create a plane and call that north. Click OK, expand that scan, go to north, and if I right click on that particular plane, I can set the alignment in the scan to be north. Click OK, close that view down, unload that scan, And now in my project point cloud, you can see that the orientation has completely changed. Next, I'm going to create a clipping plane. I need to orientate the clipping plane to match the building roughly. Then what I can do is start to clip out the areas that I don't need. I'll leave that building in, pull in that area, and just expand that out a little bit to create the courtyard. So now I've got my clipping box. Check it looking from the top to make sure I'm happy with my orientation. Trim it up any more just to make sure it's going to look quite nice. Then when I've finished, quick save. Then if I go to my WebShare data again, color and grayscale, this time I tick the apply clipping boxes and click OK. It's already got the WebShare data for this project, so I'm just going to replace it and let it do its thing. So when that's done, I'm going to go back to my project selector and have a look at the data. So here you can see now in my overview map, not only have I trimmed out the extraneous data around the edge, but I've also orientated it to be a lot more sensible on the screen. So to summarize, first download and extract the WebShare Server to Go file, remembering that you'll need the correct version, either 32-bit or 64. Go into your scene project, make sure everything's registered, pictures are added, and you're in a position where you can move forward. Create a folder called Documents under your project folder in Scene and load in any documents that you want to add into your WebShare Server to Go. Work around in a planar view, adding in your documents themselves with the unique name that you've used in the Documents folder rather than links. Create your WebShare, then click on the small arrow to the right of the WebShare and upload your WebShare to your example project or whatever project name you use under the Protected and Public Projects folder. Then remember to copy across your Documents folder into that particular project that's under your Public Projects folder. When you're trying to open a document, remember that sometimes your pop-up blocker, if you're using it for the first time, will block any document links that you've got within. And lastly, if you want to add multiple projects, then under your Public Projects folder in your WebShare to Go, then go in and add in manually different folder structures, or you can simply publish directly from Scene into that location and it'll all be there, similar to how you get in your project home screen when you open up FARO Scene. So that's it for this tech tip. I hope you found it of use, and thank you for watching.